Greetings, anonymous party members, and greetings also to those of you who are considering joining the movement. For those of you watching for the first time, my name is Mick Borden, and this video is one of many in my campaign for the office of President of the United States. I am an ordinary American citizen. I have never held a public office before. I am not worth tons of money. In fact, I make less than $50,000 a year. This may seem to be a strange way to go about it, but the intention of this entire project is to change the way in which politics work in the United States. The party primary system, paired with campaign fundraising, ensures that only donors with big money and big influence get any serious say in who makes it to the actual elections for the presidency and larger offices such as the Senate and even, in some cases, seats to the House of Representatives. That is why both primaries and campaign donations need to come to an end. To accomplish this, enough virtuous citizens, like some of you, need to run in and win elections to Congress and the presidency in order to amend the Constitution to return the election process to how the Founding Fathers had actually intended it, to give Americans a choice in who represents them, not just those with money, and also to drastically alter the way that campaigns are funded and run. Currently, the bulk of a campaign for any office has much less to do with the ideas, viewpoints, or virtues of the candidate, and far more to do with just painting an ugly picture of the candidate's opponent. This is done typically by airing television, radio, print, and internet advertisements, which typically mention voting records, which pretty much always make an opponent look bad. This is easy to do for two reasons. First, most politicians do a lot of things for political expediency. That is to say, to position themselves to gain better donors, thus getting them more campaign money for their next election. Second, the nature of how bills are written and with what government is supposed to do in order to pass them kind of necessitates that some bills will be voted against despite some people being in favor of an objective being completed, just not the way that it is that they're going about completing it. So, a candidate or office holder of some kind may vote against something because they're against how the bill proposes doing something, not what it proposes accomplishing. But an opponent to that particular candidate would use this to demonstrate in a campaign ad that that candidate is against the what instead of the how. This makes it easy to paint a bad picture of someone by saying they're against something that is apparently a virtuous goal. As some of you are also aware, Congress has just voted to remove the restrictions on campaign contributions. This essentially will enable donors with deep pockets to donate as much as they want to candidates of their choice. This actually tips the balance of power even more in favor of businesses and super wealthy individuals who wish to use their money to control the lives of others. The real power in the election process currently has more to do with funding those whose ideas you agree with to narrow the choices of the American people. What good is voting if we don't have a choice who we get to vote for? The only people that we really get to vote for are those with the money. And this is where I have a problem. Typically, I'm all in favor of people being free to do whatever they want, to a large degree. But this has nothing to do with personal freedom. Yeah, giving away your money to whoever you want appears on the surface to be a personal choice. But as soon as that choice involves influencing government to make laws to favor your business, your social class, or yourself over others, then that choice subjugates the choices of others and thus demonstrates your lack of appreciation for the right to choice. If you don't appreciate that right, then perhaps you don't actually deserve it yourself. To remove this temptation, though, laws must be permanently in place via a constitutional amendment to prevent the wealthy from being able to buy power. That being said, I am most certainly not against wealth, nor am I against wealthy having influence. But that influence should come only because of the generosity or wisdom of the wealthy, and be given voluntarily by those who would follow them. It should never be purchased from those in power in the government. The job of the government is to protect the rights of its citizens, and second, to protect its citizens from outside threats. Third, to maintain order among its citizens by enacting fair and just laws, and by enforcing those laws. And fourth, to assist any allied nations in the event that they are attacked. But the emphasis in that one is on assist allied nations, not fight their battles for them. The first of those four jobs that I mentioned is of course the most important, because without those rights, citizens are far less willing to live under the remaining rules. They're far less happy, they're far less productive. It just, everything shuts down if those rights are not protected. It may take time, but everything comes crashing down. Continuing on, without the protection from other nations via a military, what's to stop another nation from seizing control and removing the rights of the people? And without rules or laws, or at least just and fair laws, what's to stop the citizens from violating the rights of each other? But what is it about our government that violates the duties of a government? Our government is not just creating just and fair laws. They're creating rule and regulation after rule and regulation that limits and restricts our freedoms. It restricts our choices and in many ways controls our lives. They tell us how to vote, or at least who, out of a very narrow margin of people, who we're allowed to vote for, what to buy, what to eat in many cases, what to teach our children, what to put into our bodies and the bodies of our children, what we can and what we cannot do with our land. The list goes on and on. Beyond laws to protect rights, maintain order, and assist allies, the duties of government are actually pretty slim, especially the federal government. When the government, or those within it, overstep those duties, it has outgrown its purpose and therefore must be disposed of like the soiled diaper that it has become. This is why we need to vote out all the lifetime politicians, all the lackeys, the yes men, and the propagandists, and take back our nation and reshape it to a place where freedom and choice can once again shine a beacon of hope to the rest of the world. In doing so, we can send a message to the rest of this planet that this is what true freedom really looks like. This is what happens when people have a choice, and this is the kind of prosperity that can be produced when no one is telling you what you can and cannot do. Today, I'll be explaining my ideas for reforming medical billing practices. This is the third video in a 5-part series on healthcare reform. If you have not watched the first two, I encourage you to watch those as well. The order is not really extremely important, but I do recommend at least watching the first, second, and third videos before watching the fourth, and then that also before watching the fifth. Hopefully I'll have those videos out by at least halfway through May for both of them. I'm hoping to do about one every other week from now on, if at all possible. But anyone who has been to the hospital for anything but a normal checkup would likely know that you're actually most likely to get more than one bill after you've been treated. Let's assume, take a scenario here, let's assume that you went to the ER for something serious but not life-threatening. In this example, we'll just say it's a broken arm. In this case, you would be x-rayed, seen by a doctor, given pain pills, and had a cast applied to your arm. Then, right about the time that the pain starts to fade in your arm, you get the bill, or bills rather. Because you don't just get one bill. You get a bill from the emergency room, a bill from the doctor who treated you in the emergency room, a bill from the x-ray technician who x-rayed your arm to find out exactly where and how it was broken, and then you still have to pay for your prescription for pain pills. There are two main problems with how medical billing works. First is the fact that even if you know that you need a particular service, most hospitals can't, or at least will not, tell you how much it will cost ahead of time. Why is this? Typically it has to do with a few things. The first reason is at least somewhat fair, and that reason is they don't know exactly how long that service may take in some cases, or how much supplies that you may be consumed during the operation or procedure or whatever type of service that it is. Second, however, is that it seems apparent to me that hospitals will bill differently based on insurance. My insurance has typically been worse than average. I have higher premiums, higher deductibles, and a significant number of restrictions on what is covered and to what degree they're covered. So when I have called to get estimates for services, they never tell me a price or even a range, but instead can only tell me what they have billed to others in the recent past. What they bill me has always been lower than what they've billed others in the recent past. Now, it doesn't bother me paying less for something than what I came to expect that I would pay. But the reason I'm paying less has nothing to do with me being a nice guy, not because I know someone that works at the hospital, and it's not because I'm running for president. In fact, the last time that I have had anything where I've called ahead to find out how much it would cost was before I started this whole campaign anyways, so that really couldn't have been it. I believe that it's because they're sizing people up for how much they can get from them and from their insurance. My insurance is not very good, so they don't think that they can get as much anyways. So I'm billed at a little less than others may be. This makes insurance more costly for those with good insurance, which isn't really particularly fair either. But that's not to say that I really want to pay more, on the other hand, either. Part of why it costs so much is because of the complexities of medical billing, which has to do with working things out back and forth between insurance. It doesn't need to be so complex. You shouldn't have to go to school, especially for medical billing, in order to send or prepare medical bills. It should be just like any other billing service. Prices and or rates should be set ahead of time and posted on hospitals' websites or bulletin boards available for everyone to see. People should be able to look and calculate to within a very narrow margin exactly how much their medical bills will be, long before they ever see them. But that's not easy given the number of different sources of the bills. Which brings me to the second problem. This is what I call duplicate billing. The hospital will bill you for a service. Then the doctor will also bill you for basically the same service. They claim that this is because the hospital is providing the space and the technology while the doctor is providing the skill. This is a fair claim to a degree. I mean, it is a fair explanation as to what the portions of what the two different bills are for, but not as to why they have to come on two different bills. When you're visited by a plumber, you don't get a bill from the plumber, from the company that made the pipe fittings he used, and from the company that he purchased his tools from. No, that's ridiculous. The plumber has to factor all of that into one bill. He factors the cost of those supplies and tools into his bill. If you take a car to the mechanic, you don't get a bill from the person that he's renting his garage from, or a bill from the company that he bought the repair parts from. Again, the mechanic factors all of these costs into the cost of his repairs and then provides you with one bill. This is the way that it works with almost every service in the entire country, with the only exception that I'm aware of the hospital or medical services. I propose that we require hospitals or doctors to publish their costs regularly to prevent them from taking advantage of people. If all of these costs are posted ahead of time, then billing one person differently than the next is a lot harder to get away with. Otherwise, it's just extortion or price gouging. Now, there's two different basic categories of billing that I think is if you go to the emergency room should send and prepare the bill. The ER would factor the cost of doctors into the cost of that visit. The ER should have an agreement with any doctors working in it that whatever rate of pay they provide these doctors is what they're going to get, regardless of what services they provide while they're in there. It should be more like, you clocking in and going to work, not, oh, well, I can bill whatever I want because I'm the doctor, I can do whatever I want. No. If nothing else, it can be a good training ground for giving doctors the experience that they need while working alongside more experienced doctors. They can have two levels of doctors. I really don't see why I don't really see why it's necessary that doctors be able to bill people separately. Outside of the ER, the doctors themselves would be responsible for consolidating all their costs into one bill. This would include laboratory fees, x-rays, CT scans, anything. They would have agreed upon rates with those service providers, and they would pay them out of whatever money that they're taking in from the patients. It's a service that they are buying, essentially. The only difference would be is if they recommend you to a specialist. If you're referred to another doctor for a visit, then that other doctor could provide you with a separate bill, but otherwise I really don't see the point. If the service is provided at one time, especially if it was at one time in one room, it should all be on one bill. Now, there is one additional thing that's kind of a backwards segue into the insurance topic, but I think I mentioned in the insurance video as well that I think people should be responsible for passing the bills on to their insurance. And when you consolidate all the bills, it makes it a lot easier. If people, the patients, or the families of the patients, send these consolidated medical bills into the insurance companies, then they would be the ones dealing with the insurance company. They would know exactly what it was, and they would be better equipped to explain whether or not the procedure was necessary, or why it was, to what degree it was necessary. If the people are the ones dealing with the insurance companies are actually less likely to scam people because you're talking to them more often. They need to talk to their customers, not the hospitals. The hospitals are not their customers. You are. Therefore, you're the ones who should be, in dialogue with them. Yes, I understand that does provide or necessitate a little bit more work on the part of the average person, but I don't really see this as a problem. Sometimes a little bit more effort is necessary. Since the services that these people provide would also be published, though, or at least agreed upon with the doctors ahead of time, doctors can easily factor all these costs together. Now, one thing that I absolutely have to point out is that it is vitally important that the government not be involved in any way with setting these costs, only mandating that they be published. Once they're published, the people will be able to point out where the dishonesty still is, where the price gouging is. If you're comparing costs from one hospital to the next, and one hospital is charging 50 times the rate of another hospital for the same procedure, obviously either the one hospital is losing boatloads of money or the other one is making boatloads of it. So, slight differences should easily be tolerable, but it should never be 50 times as much from one place to the next. An example that I came up with, though, is what the medical industry is currently doing is kind of comparable to allowing restaurants to allow people to eat a meal and then give them a bill that is outlandishly high without any indication that it may be expensive. Menus would be left without prices, and with those prices left off of the menu, not many people would order a $300 cheeseburger, would they? Especially not if they receive an $85 bill a week later from the dairy that produced the cheese on it. This is exactly what's happening in the medical system. It's deceptive and dishonest, and it needs to be simplified. The only reason for such complexity is to conceal the dishonesty. Ideally, the medical system will adopt these practices on their own. This would actually demonstrate a high level of integrity and virtue that currently appears to be missing. I don't really see it happening, but then I have been surprised before. So if you do run or manage a hospital, a doctor's office, or anything, or any lab services, x-ray technician, anything, if you're in the medical field, I would encourage you to see what you can do to move this along, to try to get it to where everything can be consolidated onto one bill. Do it for your patients. Work something out with other people. Just find a way to make it happen, because if you start to do this, you start to pay each other for services that you're requiring of your patients. Simplify everything for your patients, and guess what? That also simplifies it for insurance, because they're only getting one bill. So even before the insurance goes to the way that I'm suggesting, it still benefits the patients. It simplifies everyone's lives. It makes everything so much easier if just a few things are worked out here and there. But these are the things that I believe need to happen. If you agree with me, or if you have other ideas, concerns, or questions, please go to the party's website, www.anonymousparty.org, and sign up for the forums. There you'll find a section for discussion about my campaign, as well as other sections about just general party topics, and hopefully soon discussions for other candidates. There are plenty of topics that are important to what I'm doing, and what I hope will catch on with the rest of you who value your freedoms. If you do value your freedom, your choice, and virtue in humanity, please join us now. Consider running for an office in your state. Make your voice heard. This is your nation. You are the people.